Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask an Addict. My name is Chris with the Rewired Soul, and today's question is one that I get a ton. And there's basically a blank spot, so this blank space can be filled with just about anything. So, Chris, my drug of choice or substance of choice was blank. Why can't I do blank? Because I never had problems with blank. I get that constantly. I have people who come in to treatment for heroin and they say, but Chris, I never had a problem with weed. Or they come in for meth and they say, Chris, I never had a problem with alcohol. It is something that I get constantly. So, aside from the scientific evidence that addiction is a disease, you probably saw my other video about that. That might be where you know me from. Aside from that, what really helped me with this whole disease concept of it was that I can look at it and realize that there's a part of my brain that is speaking complete and utter nonsense to me. Just complete craziness. I remember when my family had an intervention for me. My mom was already 7 years sober, and her and her friend were trying to talk me into getting sober, and they kept saying, oh, that's just your disease talking, that's your disease talking. I was like, shut up, what are you talking about? But now it makes sense. So whenever I hear people come to me and they say that, and they say, Chris, I never had a problem with alcohol or marijuana or something like that, I just look at them, I'm like, oh man, your disease is talking at you loud right now. So there are many different layers to this thing. Each one ends up back at the same point. But the first thing that we'll talk about is addiction as a disease and how this thing works. First of all, addiction is not about a substance. Regardless of what substance that you were on or you're currently on, it has nothing to do with that. The scientific evidence proves that the way that our brains work shows that we don't have a problem with a specific substance. We have a problem with a thing called dopamine. This means that we can get hooked on literally anything that releases dopamine. Dopamine is a pleasure chemical in our brain, and it's part of our natural survival instincts that we want to do something that gives us pleasure. The problem is that we get an excess flood of dopamine, and it overpowers the logical decision-making part of our brain, which lays right up here, called the prefrontal cortex. So anything that gives us pleasure. That's why you see a lot of people who get sober and their addiction manifests in different ways. Maybe they get addicted to their job. They get addicted to money. I personally almost developed like a full-blown gambling addiction when I first got sober, and I had to pump the brakes on it. And that's a whole nother video that I have to do about watching your addiction manifesting in different ways after you get clean. If that's something that you're interested in, make sure you comment on it below. But when we're talking about addiction with substances, remember, it's a problem with dopamine. It's not a problem with the substance. So I get a lot of people asking me this all the time. Now, when this question is asked of me, see, part of what I do, part of what I've done for a while now is not only do I see the success stories of how magnificent people do in their recovery. I get to see people get their lives back, their families back, their health, their sanity, all these things back. But on the dark side of it, I also see the relapses. And I do my best to help them out, help them get clean again, help them get back on the right track. But what I always say when that question rises up is that I cannot even count how many people I have seen have full-blown relapses on a different drug or alcohol, and they came in on something completely different. Like, if I had $1 for each one of these situations, like, my production value would be a lot better, let me tell you that. I've had people come in for heroin, and they come back for alcohol. I've had people come in for meth and come back for alcohol. Alcohol and weed are the two biggest ones because alcohol's been legal. As long as you're 21 years old, there's a lot of people struggling with alcoholism, and I don't think it gets enough attention. By the way, if you have questions about that, comment below. But then marijuana. In 2017 right now, like I live in Las Vegas, we recently legalized recreational use of weed. That's cool. But for addicts, alcoholics, that's not cool. Like, not saying that, you know, nobody should smoke weed just because certain people like me can't smoke it. Like, that's cool. Like, go do your thing. But we need to realize that just because a substance is legal does not mean that it's okay to use. Like, how many of you out there are recovering from a prescription drug addiction? Feel free to comment on it below. Like, I'm one of them. The drugs I was prescribed were completely legal, but it almost killed me and it destroyed my life. So saying that, oh, well, alcohol's not my problem, it's legal, or weed's not my problem, it's legal. Like, I could take a lot of legal things and absolutely destroy my life. The next argument that I get, and it often happens with weed, is, well, Chris, weed isn't an addictive substance. I can't get addicted to weed. Again, false. Because it is not about the substance, it is about the dopamine release. But saying that weed is not an addictive substance because it's all natural and grows from the ground, you can lay the science down on me all day long, but the logic is completely flawed. Think about it. What about sex addicts? What about gambling addicts? What about food addicts? What about technology addicts? People addicted to their smartphones and social media. Those aren't addictive substances, technically, right? But addiction, in the simplest definition, is repeating any action despite negative consequences. So, we can become hooked on anything. Like, one thing that I always ask my clients is how many of you out there realize that your addiction happened a long time before you picked up a drink or drug? And what I mean by that, what other addictions did you have? See, I personally didn't start drinking until I was about 18 years old, but my early addictions were video games. I had a stint where I was addicted to ping pong. I'd get addicted to certain TV shows. I'd get addicted to certain books. Like, and when I talk addicted, it's not like, oh yeah, I'm just kind of addicted to these things. No. I'm talking about straight up ditching class in high school to go home and play ping pong because my brain could not get away from it. I was obsessing about it, and it was taking away from my responsibilities in life, even at that age before I found drugs and alcohol. So my question to you is, how many of you have experienced your addiction in other ways? So to say that you can switch to another substance and not have a problem, that's that disease talking at you. It's saying, hey, your problem's not with that. Go do this other thing instead. Just do that. And remember, as much as you want to say like, oh, well, weed's legal or alcohol's legal, how many of people out there watching this video right now, and feel free to help prove my point by commenting below, how many of you out there have been fired from a job because of alcohol or weed? I've personally been fired from jobs for alcohol. I've personally not gotten jobs because of weed. And one thing you have to remember about marijuana is that it's still not legal on a federal level. Any employer out there still has the right to fire you or not hire you because you smoked it. Now, if you continue to smoke it, knowing that there's those consequences, we go back to that simple definition of addiction. Repeated use or a repeated action despite negative consequences. So if you can't stop smoking weed because you need it to relax, you need it to do whatever it is, and it prevents you from getting a job and providing for yourself or even worse, your family, then you clearly have a problem. Now, the thing that I always say too is, is let's look at the root of that question. If you watch my other video about making your family understand your addiction, like, let's get down to the root. So a lot of people, when they come at me and they say, well, Chris, I just need to smoke a little weed so I can relax. Or Chris, I never had a problem with alcohol. I just like to drink, some booze at the end of the day to relax from work. So the root of that issue that you're having is that you need a better way to relax. And one thing that you can do that I always talk about is mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation. It is a scientifically proven method that if you spend just 10 minutes a day, you will see how much you begin to relax. It helps with sleep, it helps with anxiety, helps with depression, helps with ADHD, helps with all sorts of stuff. So the excuse to drink or use because you need something to calm down, that's that disease talking again, is exactly what that is. I do these videos and I share my experience, I share my advice, I share my suggestions with everybody because I'm at a point, and I've been at this point for a while now, where even if they told me that there was a cure for addiction, they said, Chris, I'll give you this shot, you take this vaccine, you'll never become addicted again, I still don't think I would ever drink or use because I have found so many natural solutions just by living life that any reason I would drink or use is completely out the window. My anxiety is now manageable. My depression is manageable. Life is manageable. So don't you want to get to that point? Don't you want to go through some of these struggles so you can get to a point where you no longer need anything that you have to rely on in order to relax or be happy? My man Russell Simmons, he talks about it as living a life where you need nothing. And it's a crazy concept for some of you watching this, but eventually you get to that point where you don't need anything to be who you want to be, to get what you want. You can just be yourself and not have to take anything for it. Like, this is coming from a guy where it doesn't matter how sick I am, I don't even take NyQuil because I used to abuse NyQuil and I don't know if I'll do that again. So when asking, can I switch from one substance to another? The answer is absolutely not. And this isn't just a suggestion. This is scientifically proven. So if you have more questions about this, check the description below. I'll put a link to my course where I discuss the disease of addiction. I discuss that excess flood of dopamine. I even discuss mindfulness, which I mentioned a couple minutes ago, and you can sign up for my course. I'll make you a deal though. If you leave a comment below saying, Chris, I want to take the course, I will give you a free coupon code. So usually it's $25. It's a course that I use to teach not only clients, but family members, other medical professionals about the disease of addiction. So I usually charge $25 per course, but if you leave a comment below saying that you want to take this course, I'll give you a coupon code so you could take it for free. You have free access to it for however long you want, and it's a short course. I think it's like less than an hour and a half, and you can take it at your own pace, but check it out. But before you think about switching from one substance to another, I challenge you to learn more about addiction. Educate yourself. Once you understand how serious this thing is, then that question will just leave your head, because then you'll go into a place of acceptance and realize, oh, guess I can't have that anymore. All right. But anyways, that's all the time we got for this episode. Don't forget, in the comments below, leave other questions that you want me to answer, questions that you might have if you're in recovery and trying to stay sober, but you're running into roadblocks. If you're trying to get sober, if you have questions about that, leave that in the comments. If you are the friend, family member, loved one of somebody who is in their addiction or recovering from addiction and you have questions, leave it in the comments below. That's how I know what to make new videos about. And always remember, any question that you have, I guarantee there is at least one other person who has that question. So you're doing them a favor by leaving it in the comment below so I can answer it. So thanks for watching. If you haven't yet, subscribe. I'm doing daily videos, and I will see you next time.